Friends, I welcome you for this lecture on job sequencing. So in this lecture, let us discuss the concept of job sequencing, how to sequence the jobs, what are the methods. So during the lecture series, we will discuss this concept. Basically, this job sequencing is the part of production control. As we know that the production control provides the foundation on which the most of the other controls are based. The control describes the constraining of the activities to follow the plans. That means we are interested here to restrict or control the activities so as to follow our plans. The production control, this term, the production control, basically if you try to define it, it is the function of management which plans, directs and controls the material supply and processing activities of an enterprise so that the specified products are produced by specified methods to meet the approved sales program. So these activities are being carried out in such a manner that the labor, plant and capital available are used to the best advantage of the organization. So the production control activities, specifically, they are programming, ordering and dispatching. So if we try to outline the production control, the most important activities are loading and scheduling. Besides that, sequencing and expediting. So if we look at the output plans or master plans of an organization, when we specify them, the products are specified, but these specifications must be transformed into operational terms to be implemented on the shop floor. So for the output plan, main activities are the loading, that is assigning of the specific jobs to each work center for the planning period, and sequencing, that is determining the order of processing of all the jobs at each work center. So this is the important thing in the production control. So let us see what is job sequencing now. Now if we try to define the job sequencing, this is nothing but the selection of an appropriate order in which a number of jobs, that is operations or activities, can be arranged to a finite number of service facilities, that is machines or equipment, so as to optimize the outputs in terms of time, cost or profit. So if you look at the sequencing problems, they arise whenever there is a need for determining an optimum order of performing a number of jobs by number of facilities. So production of finished goods from raw materials consists of several operations, right? So there we require a sequence of activities. So therefore, frequently similar operations required for several products are performed at same work sessions, particularly in intermittent or batch production. So basically the job sequencing comes under the batch production. So under such situations, it is required to select a preferred order of products passing through a workstation. The problem becomes complicated when there are several workstations, when there are several loading facilities. In such a problem, the criteria is to minimize the total processing time. If the quantity is cost, that should be minimized, or if it is regarding the profits, it should be maximized. So therefore, the sequencing problem or job sequencing provides a single procedure for optimum loading of facilities. So for preparing a master plan, this activity is very helpful. Friends, now let us discuss why it is necessary to sequence the jobs. Why it is necessary to sequence the jobs. Now let us take an example. Suppose there is a machinist. We call it as an operator. A machinist has to perform the three operations, namely milling, drilling and tapping on a finite number of jobs, say 5 jobs, and the time required to complete or to perform these activities or operations in minute for each job is known. Here we consider that we have to perform these three applications, milling, drilling and tapping, on the 5 jobs, and the time required to perform these operations in minutes is known for us. Now our main problem is which job should be processed first and which job processed should be next, or which one should be the last, and so on. Next question arises is what should be the optimum sequence so that the total processing time should be minimum. Next, we will have to find out the total minimum time required to process all the jobs. That means it is called as total elapsed times. So we have to find out here total elapsed time to process all the jobs. And at last, we should know what is the idle time for each machine. At the end of complete solution to the problem, we should know which machine is idle for what amount of time. So we should know these answers. So if we sequence the jobs, we will be able to find out answers to all these questions. So therefore, if we look at this example is specifically of the types 5 jobs, that is more than 2 jobs. So it is called as n jobs and 3 machines, because we have to perform here 3 operations, milling, drilling and tapping. So we require here 3 machines. Therefore this example is of the type n jobs 3 machines. Therefore, for solving such kind of problems, we should know the technique of sequencing of the job. Friends, now let us discuss the general sequencing problem. For example, we have taken the 2 jobs, job A and job B, and 2 machines, M1 and M2. So how much possible sequences there will be? There will be the possible sequences as 2 factorial raised to 2. So why? Because this is proved mathematically here. Now if we sequence the job first A on machine M1 or job B first on machine M1, so there will be the 2 sequences. Again, if we process the job first A on machine M2 or job B on machine M2, so later on the sequences will be in this manner. So if we take here the 3 jobs 3 machines, so there will be how much possible sequences? The possible sequences will be 3 factorial raised to 2. That is, this figure comes as, there will be the total number of sequences as 216. So if we generalize this sequencing problem to determine the how many sequences are possible there, it will be, if there are suppose n jobs and m machines, so we will have to find out the sequence out of n factorial raised to m possible sequences that will minimize the total elapsed time between the start of the first job on the first machine and the completion of last job on the last machine. So we are interested here to determine the best sequence which will minimize our the total elapsed time. Now let us see in the next slide common sequencing rules. So if we look at these rules for sequencing of the jobs, first come first serve, that is FCFS. The jobs which are processed in the order as they come into the system or shop. Second rule is the shortest processing time. So in this case, the job with the shortest processing times are scheduled first. That means the job which has the shortest processing time, that is taken first, and the job which is having the maximum processing time is processed at the last, and accordingly the jobs are arranged. Next rule is according to earliest due date. In short, it is called as EDD, where the jobs are sequenced according to their due dates. The jobs which is having earlier due date, that is processed first, and the job which is having the maximum amount of due date, it is processed at the last. Similarly, there is one more technique by using the critical ratio. So critical ratio is nothing but the processing time of the job to the remaining time for the due date. That means the ratio of processing time of the jobs and remaining time until the due date. So therefore the schedule the job with the largest CR value next. So here the firstly job is processed which is having the highest CR. Now there are certain assumptions in the job sequencing problems. So the assumption is, first assumption is, all the jobs are completely known and are ready for processing before the period under consideration starts. So here we know the jobs which are to be ordered, then we know here the how many machines are available there, and these machines are of different types. Then at a time only one job will process on a machine. So therefore only one job can be processed on a given machine at a time. Then we know the processing times on each of the machines, and they are exactly known to us. And also processing times are independent of the order of the jobs. That means whichever the job which we will consider on any machine, so that time is fixed. That time does not depend upon the order of jobs. Then once a job has begun on a machine, it must be completed. That means once we take a job for processing, it must be completed before taking the next succeeding job. That is, once a job is taken, it must be completed. Then the time required to transport the jobs from one machine to another is negligible. Here we don't consider the handling time. And the last assumption is, no job is to be given any priority. That means once we schedule it, sequence it, that order is final one, and there is no priority given to any of the jobs. Now let us discuss the terminology used in job sequence. The first term is the number of machines, where we know here how many service facilities are available. The next one is the processing order. This is the order in which the given machines are used or required for completing the jobs. The next one is the processing time. So this is the time required by a job on each machine. That is called as processing time. So for each of the machines, for each of the jobs, this time is given to us. Then idle time on a machine. So this is the time for which a machine does not have a job to process. We can say this is the waiting time of machines. Then next one is the total elapsed time. So this is the time interval between the start of the first job and the completion of the last job, including idle time, if any, in a particular order by a given set of machines. So this time is important to us, and we are interested to calculate the total elapsed time and idle time on each machine. So this is the complete time required for completing all the jobs. And last one is the no passing rule. That is, once a job will go to machine M1 first, then M2, M3 and so on. So this is the no passing rule.